Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a deep dive into something I know a lot of you are dealing with, grappling with, thinking about a lot, and that is the impact of screen time on our children's mental health. It's a topic that's sparking a lot of debate and, frankly, a lot of anxiety for parents. So we've gathered a mountain of research, expert opinions, and practical advice to try to help you cut through the noise and get to the heart of the matter.
Yeah.
And get this.
Yeah.
One study found that the average American teenager spends the equivalent of 30 years of their life staring at screens. That's a pretty sobering thought, right?
Wow.
So let's unpack this complex issue together,
Yeah.
explore both the risks and the potential benefits, and most importantly, figure out how we can best navigate this digital landscape with our kids.
You know, it's fascinating to think about how, we're talking about technology that wasn't initially designed with children in mind.
Right.
These devices, the apps, the entire, digital ecosystem, it was all created for adults. And now we're kind of scrambling, trying to figure out how to integrate these powerful tools into the lives of young people whose brains are still developing.
Right. It feels like we're playing catch up in a lot of ways. But before we dive into the research, let's just kind of get a clear picture of what we're actually dealing with here. Just how much screen time are we talking about?
Well, recent studies show that teenagers are spending an average of 8 hours a day on screens, and for preteens, it's around 5.5 hours. To put that into perspective, that's more time than most adults spend at their jobs.
Right.
And, these numbers have been steadily increasing over the past decade.
Wow. A third of their day, every day, glued to a screen. And I know the pandemic really accelerated things, right?
Absolutely. Screen time for teenagers outside of virtual school nearly doubled during the pandemic, jumping from 3.8 hours a day to a whopping 7.7 hours. That sudden increase is definitely something to consider when we're looking at the potential impact on mental health.
Yeah. It's mind-boggling. And it's not just about entertainment anymore, right? Screens are now integrating into almost every aspect of our lives. Yeah. Education, work, communication, socializing. It's a fundamental shift in how we live and interact.
Yeah, I think that's an important point to make. Screens are no longer just a source of entertainment. They're an essential part of our daily lives. And that's an important distinction to make before we jump to conclusions about good versus bad screen time. We need to acknowledge that screens are here to stay.
Right.
And they can be incredibly powerful tools when used effectively.
Okay, so let's get down to the research. What's the science telling us about the potential downsides of all this screen time, particularly when it comes to children's mental health?
Well, several studies have shown a correlation between excessive screen time and increased rates of depression and anxiety, especially in teenagers who spend more than 3 hours a day on social media. In fact, one study found that teens who spend 3 hours or more on social media daily are 60% more likely to report feeling lonely and isolated. That's a significant statistic to consider.
That is significant, especially given how much emphasis is placed on social media these days. It's almost like a currency for social acceptance, particularly for teenagers.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Social media plays a huge role in young people's lives, which is why it's so important to understand the potential risks. And it's not just about mental health either. Some studies suggest a possible link between excessive screen time and physical health issues like weight gain, unhealthy eating habits, and even potentially heart problems later in life.
So we're talking about a potential impact on both mind and body. But you use an important word there, correlation. It's not necessarily causation, right?
Yeah, that's a crucial point. Just because two things happen together doesn't mean one causes the other, We need to be careful about jumping to conclusions. More research is needed to definitively say that screen time directly causes these problems. It's kind of like the historical moral panics we've seen around new forms of entertainment, like novels, rock music, or video games.
Right.
There's often a knee-jerk reaction to demonize the new and unfamiliar.
That's a great reminder to keep things in perspective. Remember the uproar over comic books back in the day? People were convinced they were going to rot children's brains.
Right, exactly.
But even with that caveat, I think it's fair to say that there's a growing concern about the potential for addiction-like behaviors with screens. And we're talking about withdrawal symptoms, building tolerance, even relapse. Those are pretty serious signs.
Yeah, you're absolutely right to point that out. And it's not just the time spent, but what's happening behind those screens that we need to be aware of. those algorithms and data collection practices, they can be pretty insidious.
Hmm.
They create echo chambers, amplify negative content, and potentially even be used to unfairly predict things like student outcomes.
Yeah, whoa. We're talking about shaping a child's digital reality without them even realizing it. It's a little bit creepy, to be honest.
It is, and it underscores why, parental awareness and involvement are absolutely crucial in this digital age. We need to be having open conversations with our kids, setting boundaries, and really understanding how these platforms work.
Okay, so we've delved into some of the potential downsides, but let's not paint screen time with a purely negative brush. I know there are also benefits to consider, right? Let's explore those next.
So, we've been talking about the potential downsides of screen time, but it's important to remember that screens aren't inherently good or bad.
Right.
They're tools, and like any tool, they can be used for good or for ill.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about the potential upsides.
Mhm.
What are some of the ways screen time can actually enhance children's lives?
Well, when used strategically and thoughtfully, screen time can offer a wealth of benefits for children. For instance, think about the incredible array of educational apps and games available these days.
Hmm.
These tools can boost cognitive development, especially when used interactively, with an engaged adult.
Right, it's not about just plopping a kid in front of an app and calling it a day,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's about making it a shared experience, asking questions,
Yeah.
guiding their learning. You're turning it into a learning opportunity rather than just mindless entertainment.
Precisely. And for some kids, particularly those who might feel isolated or marginalized in their offline communities, online spaces can provide a vital sense of connection and belonging.
Oh, interesting.
Think about LGBTQ plus youth, for example, or kids with disabilities. They can connect with like-minded peers, share experiences, and find support in ways that might not be as readily available in their immediate surroundings.
That's a really important point. Screens can help break down geographical barriers and create communities of support for kids who might otherwise feel isolated.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about access to information and global perspectives.
Right.
Screens can open up the world to children, introducing them to different cultures, languages, and ideas. They can learn about history, science, art, music from around the globe, all at their fingertips. It's an incredible opportunity for expanding their horizons.
Yeah, it's like having a virtual library and museum right there in your living room. You can explore anything you're curious about, connect with experts, dive deep into any subject that sparks your imagination.
Exactly. And remember that family we mentioned earlier, the one who turns screen time into a sing-along experience with musicals. That's a perfect illustration of how to make screen time active and engaging. It's about choosing content that encourages interaction, creativity, and learning.
Right. It's not about passively consuming whatever pops up on the screen, but about being intentional and making choices that align with your family's values and goals.
Exactly. It's all about the content. Educational and interactive experiences are generally far more beneficial than just passively watching videos or scrolling through social media. And research suggests that green time, spending time in nature, can actually help mitigate the negative effects of screen time.
That makes a lot of sense. Getting kids outdoors, encouraging them to play, explore, and connect with nature is such an important part of a balanced and healthy lifestyle. It's about finding that equilibrium, right? Balancing those digital experiences with real-world activities and interactions.
Exactly. It's not about demonizing technology, but about finding ways to integrate it into our lives in a way that supports well-being, both physical and mental.
Okay, so we've looked at both the potential downsides and upsides of screen time. And we've acknowledged that it's not a black and white issue. It's nuanced and complex. But where does that leave parents? What are some practical steps we can take to navigate this digital landscape with our kids?
Well, the first step is recognizing that the digital world is an extension of the offline world.
Okay.
Our parenting responsibilities don't stop at the edge of the screen. Parental involvement and open communication are absolutely essential.
Right. It's not about treating the digital world as some separate entity that we can't or shouldn't influence. It's part of our children's lives, and we need to be engaged and present in that space just as we are in the physical world.
Exactly. And that means setting clear boundaries and expectations around screen time, just as we do with other aspects of their lives. We need to establish screen-free zones in the house, like the dinner table or the bedroom, and designate times when devices need to be powered down, like an hour before bedtime.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about creating those clear boundaries and sticking to them. But I think that's where a lot of parents struggle, myself included. It's easy to cave in when the kids are whining or you just need a break. How do we stay consistent and avoid those screen time battles?
It is tough. I won't sugarcoat it. But remember, you're the adult and you set the tone and the expectations.
Right.
It's not about being a dictator. It's about involving your kids in the process.
Okay.
Talk to them about why these boundaries are important. Help them understand the benefits of balancing screen time with other activities.
So it's about having those conversations, explaining the reasoning behind the rules, and making them active participants in the decision-making process.
Exactly. And it's not just about talking the talk, it's about walking the walk. Kids are incredibly perceptive, and they pick up on our habits, both good and bad. If we're constantly glued to our phones, it sends a mixed message.
Right.
So lead by example. Put your own phone down during family time. Create screen-free spaces for yourself as well.
Practice what you preach. Right. Model those healthy habits that you want your kids to adopt.
Precisely. And it's not just about quantity, it's about quality. Engage with your kids in activities that don't involve screens. Read together, play games, go for walks, get creative. Show them that there's a whole world of fun and engaging things to do beyond those glowing rectangles.
And speaking of quality, how do we guide our kids toward healthier choices when it comes to the content they're consuming online?
Yeah.
There's so much out there, and it can be overwhelming for parents to try to keep up with it all.
This is where media literacy comes in. It's about teaching our kids to be critical thinkers, to question what they see online, and to understand how algorithms and marketing can influence their choices. We need to give them the tools to be discerning consumers of digital content.
So it's like teaching them to read the fine print in the digital world, right?
Yeah,
Helping them understand that not everything they see online is true or unbiased.
exactly. Talk to them about advertising, targeted marketing, and the potential for manipulation. Encourage them to be aware of the messages they're receiving and to be critical of the information they encounter online. Help them develop those critical thinking skills that are essential for navigating the digital world.
It's about empowering them to make informed choices, not just blindly consuming whatever is thrown at them.
Precisely. And it's not just about being critical, it's also about being creators. Encourage your kids to use technology for positive purposes, to express themselves creatively, to connect with others in meaningful ways. Support their interests in things like coding, filmmaking, digital art, music production. Help them see the potential of technology as a tool for creation, not just consumption.
That's such an important message. It's about harnessing the power of technology for good, for self-expression, for connection, for learning. And it's about finding that balance between the digital and the real world, between consumption and creation, between entertainment and engagement.
Exactly. It's a journey, not a destination. There will be bumps along the way. Don't be afraid to course correct, to adjust boundaries, and to have those open and honest conversations as your kids grow and their needs evolve.
It's about finding that balance that works for your family, knowing that it might look different for everyone.
Precisely. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. It's about being mindful, informed, and proactive. And most importantly, remember that you're not alone in this. There are tons of resources available to help parents navigate this digital landscape.
Right. There are organizations like the American Academy of Pediatrics, Common Sense Media, and even tech companies themselves that offer valuable information and tools for parents. We'll make sure to link those resources in the show notes so you can easily find them.
Absolutely. We'll provide you with a toolkit to help you navigate this complex world.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the research, the potential downsides and upsides of screen time, and some practical tips for parents.
So we've covered a lot of ground, but we're not done yet. We're going to arm you with even more tools and resources to help you navigate this ever-evolving digital world.
Okay, let's get down to brass tacks.
Yeah.
What are some specific things that parents can do to create a healthier relationship between their kids and those screens?
You know, one thing that often gets overlooked is the physical environment.
Huh?
Think about where those screens are located in your home.
Mm-hmm.
Are they in bedrooms where they can interfere with sleep? Are they constantly vying for attention in common areas?
So you're suggesting we think about screen placement strategically.
Exactly. Creating designated screen-free zones can make a huge difference.
Okay.
For example, having a charging station outside of bedrooms so devices aren't tempting kids all night long, or establishing a family rule that screens stay out of the dining room.
Right.
So meal times are about connection and conversation, not scrolling and distractions.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about being mindful of the physical space and how it influences our behaviors and interactions.
Right. And another thing parents can do is get involved in their kids' digital lives. It's not about being big brother.
Right.
It's about showing interest, asking questions, and staying informed.
So instead of just saying no screens, we should be engaging with them about what they're doing online, what they're watching, who they're talking to.
Exactly. Have conversations about what they find interesting, what they're learning, what challenges they're facing, and don't be afraid to set limits on the content they're consuming.
Hmm.
There are parental controls available for a reason. Use them to filter out inappropriate material and manage their exposure to things like violent video games or addictive social media platforms.
That's the good reminder. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the sheer volume of stuff out there, but we do have tools at our disposal to help us manage it.
Absolutely. And remember, it's not about being perfect, it's about progress, not perfection. There will be times when you cave, when the screen time rules get bent, when you just need a break.
Right.
And and that's okay. It's all part of the learning process for both you and your kids.
It's about giving ourselves grace, right? We're all figuring this out as we go along.
Exactly. And one of the most important things you can do is foster a sense of balance in your children's lives. Encourage activities that don't involve screens, promote hobbies, sports, creative pursuits, anything that gets them moving, thinking, and interacting with the world in a hands-on way.
So it's about creating a rich and varied tapestry of experiences, both online and offline,
Yeah.
finding that sweet spot where technology enhances their lives rather than dominating them.
Exactly. And remember, this isn't just about protecting our kids from the potential harms of screen time. It's about empowering them to use technology in positive and meaningful ways, to be creators, not just consumers, to connect, to learn, to explore, to express themselves, to use those screens as tools for growth, not just entertainment.
That's a powerful message. It's about shifting the focus from fear to empowerment, from restriction to possibility.
Precisely. And one final thought I want to leave you with is this. You are not alone in this journey. There is a wealth of resources available to help parents navigate this digital landscape.
Yes, you mentioned some great organizations earlier, like Common Sense Media and the American Academy of Pediatrics. They have tons of information, tips, and even reviews to help parents make informed choices about screen time and content.
Absolutely. We'll be sure to include links to those resources in the show notes so you can easily access them and dive deeper into any areas that are particularly relevant to your family.
That's fantastic. So as we wrap up this deep dive into screen time and children's mental health, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with?
I think it's this. Screens are here to stay, and they have the potential to be both incredibly beneficial and potentially harmful. The key is to be informed, to be engaged, and to be proactive in shaping our children's relationship with technology. By fostering a sense of balance, open communication, and critical thinking, we can help them navigate the digital world safely, responsibly, and joyfully.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and insights with us today. It's been a fascinating and enlightening conversation.
My pleasure. It's a topic I'm passionate about, and I hope our conversation has provided you with some valuable tools and perspectives.
And to all of you listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it helpful, informative, and maybe even a little bit inspiring. Remember, you are the experts on your own children, and you have the power to create a healthy and balanced digital environment for your family.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
And keep those conversations going.